Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Secret Sauce of Selling podcast, the ultimate guide and sales gym to unlocking the secrets of successful selling and leadership growth. I'm your host, James Abraham, on a mission to empower the best generation of sales professionals and leaders the world has ever seen. I'm excited to have a wonderful guest with us today, Tori Signorelli. How are you?
Hi, James. Very well, thanks.
Well, welcome to the show, Tori. I'm really excited. You're like on the other side of the world right now.
I
From
am.
where
I'm in
I
Seattle. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm in Tel Aviv, so that's
Great.
awesome. Yeah, and our topic is the secret sauce of the customer experience and the power of collaboration. Why don't you tell us a little about what you do and what are we talking about?
Sure. So my background is in customer experience and service design. So I work with organizations to help them understand their customer's point of view of their organization. So from the outside in, that customer experience element, and then how to structure themselves and really make those experiences come to life in the best possible way by looking inside the organization at how it can deliver on that experience.
Wow, we had an interesting conversation when we were getting to know each other just prior to recording, and I mentioned a week ago or a few days ago, I saw a post on one of the social medias from some group, and someone posted a question: who's the best salesperson you've ever met? And people gave names, if you have famous people, you got your Steve Jobs answers, your Tony Robbins answers, stuff like that. And I'm like, for me, it was just so obvious. The best salesperson the world has ever created is the customer himself, and getting the
Mhm.
customer to sell himself and have the experience. And I think that's what people are really looking for. They're looking for experiences. So how did you end up in this business doing what you do? Because I find it fascinating. I think not enough of us focus on the customer. Everyone's focusing on themselves.
It's a great question. And actually, usually pretty interesting when you talk to customer experience practitioners. Almost nobody started out looking to do customer experience, but rather was drawn there as I moved through their career path. Mine started in the theater where I was, creating audience experiences, really as an actor, but, in theater in general. And then through my own personal curiosity, ended up working in human resources and human systems, and then in interior design and architecture. So it's like kind of all those pieces came together. At the end of the day, what I cared about was creating great human experiences, and then I had the chance to start applying that in a more of a corporate and setting, and it just kind of took off when I got into I found my people in customer experience and service design.
Sounds like you're doing what you love, and you
I
love what you
am.
do. And
Yes.
so tell us a little bit about the challenges companies or corporate, I'd say just companies in general, I think any business has these days when it comes to optimizing customer experience. Why would a company bring you in?
So, typically a company's looking at maybe they're not, they know that they're not meeting customer needs in one way or another, or they're having a hard time actually performing and develop and creating the experience they want to create, right? And typically what I find, and what is very common these days, is that organizations are operating in silos. They're really focused on their kind of component parts, whether that be their product, which might be a digital product, it could be a service, but stringing those pieces together and connecting the dots can be a really challenging thing to do, especially from the inside, especially when you're only looking at the inside. And so I come in when it's time to look at the outside in, really understand the customer's point of view, and then can start to help reconnect the dots inside the organization across silos to negotiate problem solving for the customer.
Yeah, the silos. So here we go, guys. All right, I want to talk about that for a second. Yep. So here's my question.
Sure.
Um, where do you think they get it wrong? Where does
Mm.
it begin? I mean, where does it start? Because I buy stuff and I have
Mhm.
this, I should actually do a podcast or a series of getting on calls with, I'm thinking of this, I should do this, getting calls with salespeople and just showing the world how self-centered they are, how companies, all they care about is telling, it's about me, and our product and our history and what we do and what this and blah, blah, blah. and less about being other centered. So I know this from a sales world perspective. I see this happening, but I think my question to you is, from your perspective, where do they get it wrong from the beginning?
Well, I think you're hitting on it. It certainly starts with leadership and a focus on profit, which is it's obvious, right? Like you're in business, you need to make a profit. If you're public, you're appealing to your shareholders, and makes total sense. But what gets missed is that the customer is the critical component to actually sustaining your business. And so it becomes all about making those short-term wins, those financial gains, cutting cost and like low cost to deliver your product or service, and you miss the fact that your customer might have something to say about it, right?
Oh my God. It's like every airline I've been flying recently is just
Oh,
flashing across. Yeah.
yeah. And I think companies can get away with it for a while and to a certain extent, until a disruptor comes along and does it better, or until customers start to really complain, or they leave, or and at that point it's really too late, right? Once the customers start to exit your business, it's a lot harder to
Yeah.
get them back than it is to
Yeah.
keep them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and these days, everyone's around retention. Customer success is very popular these days. Everyone wants to become a customer success manager because basically they hope that it's easier than sales. When in fact, it's not easier than sales at all. It's actually way more difficult. I see this. You got your seller and someone said to me, I was interviewing someone earlier today, and they said, I like to be customer success. I don't like the whole sales piece. Really, why? Well, I'm more of a farmer. I'm not a hunter. And I said, well, it's interesting, because I believe that you need to be, if you're a farmer, you need to have a hunter's heart.
Mm.
And if you're a hunter, you have to have a farmer's heart. And when it comes to, I think, retention and avoiding churn and just making sure your customers stay with you long term, it's just reinventing that relationship consistently. And these days, your number one client is probably your competitor's number one prospect. And so let's talk a little bit about. I mean, the keyword to this is experience. I mean, that's just tell me what a good experience is. I mean, how does that look like from Tori's point of view, and what is the winning formula these days that organizations, business leaders need to keep in mind when
Mhm.
wanting to really give their customers what they deserve?
Sure. And I think, there's some pretty straightforward fundamentals to it, and there's always nuances across businesses, but really most people want the same things from the companies they're doing business with. And that is for expectations to be clearly set and promises to be delivered on, right? The foundation there is trust and understanding, right? So the critical focal point, I think, for businesses is, are we setting the right expectations of what we can deliver and what problems we can solve for our customers? And are we consistently delivering on those expectations? Right.
Yeah.
So,
At Sandra, we've got something called the upfront contract. So any Sandra enthusiasts out there, the upfront contract. Upfront contract is setting the stage and setting expectations at the beginning for what's supposed to happen at the end.
yeah.
And it's true for both. Everyone wants the buyer or the customer to set the expectation, but we as sellers and service providers, product
Yeah.
providers, must be able to set real expectations. I like good surprises, not bad surprises. And by the
Exactly.
way, even if that means that we can deliver, that's perfectly okay. Be brutally honest with
Yeah.
your customer in order for them to make sure that they're aligned. I think they always appreciate honesty.
Absolutely. And I think that match at the beginning, and the honesty and the being upfront about whether or not it's the right match for that customer, is really important, because that bait and switch or faking it doesn't really work when you get down the way and the customer is actually engaged with the service or the product, and they're not getting what they need. That is a very costly relationship in a lot of ways, right? You're disappointing
Okay.
them. It's yeah.
There's so much we can. Oh my God, we could just do a whole freaking series on this stuff. All right, so let's sort of. I'm a systems person, type of person. So let's put this into context. All right, let's
Yeah.
start with a whole silo piece. Okay, because
Okay.
that's just a pinball machine thing going on right there. I mean, tell me about what, what do we need to look out for these days? How do we know that we have a rotten, ill culture when it comes to silos, and how is the customer affected? I mean, the customer is clearly affected, but how does
Yeah.
that how can we as leaders see the problem, see that, because it's not, you see the symptom. The symptom is a an unhappy customer. That's
Yeah.
just a symptom. That's not the problem. The problem
Right.
is really deep. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, those deeper symptoms. What are we looking for?
Yeah. The things I see most are unnecessary and fairly brutal conflict between departments within an organization, which
Drama.
usually comes from
Drama.
exactly lots of drama, which often think stems from disparate goals, right? The leadership are not aligned across the organization about what the goals are, and therefore their teams are being held accountable to goals that are very different from another team. Which to me really speaks to the fact that they're not centering their goals around customer need, because the customer is the great disarmer, right? It is the great unifier. And so it has to start there, right? If the goals are disparate, we're in trouble, you know? People are going to be fighting for their camp. And that is absolutely the opposite of what you want to see.
So would you say it is a factor of mediocre performers working alongside high performers?
Mediocre performers, I think, it's probably it can actually start at the executive level, right? So lack of collaboration or alignment across the executive level of an organization.
So I just had to look up. I have this, and I just want to get it right. And I have this, again, one of my little mantras, which I like to quote myself. And it goes something along the lines of: mediocre people don't like high achievers, and high achievers don't like mediocre people. So if everyone doesn't buy into the same principles and values of the organization, and the same high standards and the same goals, which you mentioned,
Right.
you're never going to be successful. And the
Right.
person that eventually, the element that's going to be impacted the most will be a customer, and customers won't stick around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so let's pretend we've identified drama, we've identified conflict, we've
Mm-hmm.
identified misalignment on goals. Um, what could we do to fix it?
Yeah. And I think there's another element there, which is hyper competition, right?
Ooh,
So competition can be leveraged in a really positive way, but then it can also be very negative. If everyone's combating with one another for position, they're not thinking about the customer, they're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about wins for their team, wins for themselves, their own promotion, right? So competition can be highly competitive environments are, I think, are challenged to collaborate well.
what
Um,
you're telling me
and
is
that-
basically, if everyone feeds their ego instead of feeding the company,
right,
yeah,
exactly.
okay,
Hmm.
all
So
right.
there's a
So
value. That's a
throw
value
that one
based.
in as well. All right, how do we fix this? Tori, tell us.
Sure.
How can we start? I mean, I'm sure this is like, this, you can't fix this with Band-Aid, but let's pretend I wanted to just do some
Yeah.
first aid stuff. What as a leader these days, what would we be looking for?
So, first and foremost, I think none of these problems get solved overnight, but they can be systematically worked on and improved over time, right? There are some, I think, and some of the biggest steps you can take, the early steps that will have a almost surprisingly big big improvement, big impact, are just being able to see yourselves from the outside in. It's kind of a coaching principle, right? You get a coach because you can't see your own form or the way you're perceived. It's holding up a mirror to your organization. And one of the most powerful tools in doing that is, we say journey mapping, right? So let's take a look at and visualize our customer's point of view. What are the connecting points across our experience as a customer comes on board with our organization? Where are those critical connection points? What do they look like and what do they feel like? And that can be just that visualization can be just like when you map a process and you get a certain gain just from the fact that you can see it for the first time, right? And everyone
Yeah.
is on board and can rally around the same thing. The customer journey is very unifying in that regard because people can see where they fit into the customer's experience and what impact they are having. You layer that with some customer data, some, whether that be some really great ways to do that. There's lots of ways to gather customer data. It's all different depending on what kind of organization you have, but you layer that in with some satisfaction data, performance data, behavioral data from the customer, and it can be a very powerful tool. And calling out areas of that are going fantastically well and areas where things are breaking down, which makes it much easier to kind of foster that collaboration and get people thinking not about themselves, because now we all have a part to play in making this great, right? So it's a really powerful tool in kind of negotiating solutions across an organization and connecting the dots, bringing people together to actually work on the same problems.
I like it. There's something I always tell my clients to do. A lot of them, be honest, they really look at me and they're like, James, I'm a little chicken doing that, to be honest. And I'm known for helping my clients take things to the edge. But there is one exercise that I highly recommend anyone that has a business to do. And that is, even if especially when you close the deal, forget it. When you don't close the deal, you can ask your prospect, what could I have done better?
Sure.
But when you do close the deal, go to the customer and say, I was wondering that, looking forward to working with you. Welcome to the company. I got to ask you a question. What could we have done better in this process? And you would be surprised by the amount of information that you could gather.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sellers and also a lot of service providers are afraid of asking that question. They're afraid of what they'll hear. They're afraid it's more about me. Let's get the deal and look at me, it's wonderful, and less about being other-centered, other-focused, customer-centric, just really understanding what that journey looked like from their point of view. And again, I always encourage CEOs to actually buy from their own company sometimes, just to experience, to feel it. And so, yeah, that's something that I find is tremendously, I think, courageous, being vulnerable, and just being empathic towards how could we be better, because we're not perfect.
Right. And the more that you're collecting that point of view, the more you're gathering about the customer's needs and expectations, the more you can deliver on them or set better expectations, right? Those are two different things, but they're both critically important. And part of, I think, one of the core principles of, customer experience and customer experience data and voice of the customer is actually disseminating and then democratizing that information, right? So having that information stay with one person or even one department doesn't help the wider organization. I worked in an agency in San Diego several years ago, and I was on the side of managing client relationships post-sale, right? And it was always very pre-sale and then post-sale. There was a big gap and there was a big handover. And usually what would happen is something was promised that I either didn't know, didn't understand. There was something discussed that I wasn't privy to. And then I had to navigate very carefully, like getting them the product that they needed at the end. And it was very challenging. And also it led to a lot of unnecessary, very pragmatically, unnecessary cost in negotiating and continuously working on that relationship. But also it led to, customers leaving or feeling disillusioned about what one person said and then what another person said they were going to get, right? So closing that gap and sharing that information, democratizing the knowledge about the customer and needs and expectations is another critical part of collaboration and everyone working for the better of the company.
Amazing. So let's talk a little bit about your secret sauce I like to ask, what's your secret sauce for selling, or what's your secret sauce for providing, the customer experience? But what is your secret sauce from your point of view? What do you think, what is the magic?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, the collaboration we've been discussing. I coming from the theater too, like everyone's working together to create this performance, whether you're, the usher in the aisles or behind the scenes, or you're the actor on the stage, right? If something goes wrong, it's actually pretty critical. Someone could have a sandbag land on their head. Like, this concept of team is really important. And I think that carries into a business environment as well. When people are out for themselves, tragic things happen, right? When people are out for the team, and ultimately out to better the business and better the experience for the customer, everyone wins. And those intentions are really important. And I think curiosity is that second piece, that second part of the sauce, right? I mean, there's a lot of negotiation that goes into operating outside of your function. You have to understand others' point of view. You have to understand the customer's point of view. So there's that curiosity again as you gather that data, that information about them. But then also with your colleagues, like really wanting to understand, like, why is our sales team saying that we can do something that we maybe never promised we could do? Or why are we losing customers after our sale closes? What on earth is happening on the other side of our business, and why are they so bad at their job? Is a less valuable kind of question and than, hey, what's going on, and why are we as a team not delivering on the promise that we made? Right? Very different kind of conversation.
Yeah. Well, I can't hold it in. I gotta be brutal, guy. Any of the regular listeners and subscribers, if this is happening in your business and your salespeople are promising things that they can't deliver, it's simply because they're selling benefits and features and not uncovering real compelling pain with a customer. That's the only reason. That's the only reason. And we all know that selling benefits and features doesn't work. It's all about uncovering compelling pain and the right reasons for them. Someone doesn't have a problem you can solve. You disqualify, move on. But there's enough business for everybody. There's enough. They're all out there. There's never been a better time in history to sell than now. Everyone's got problems. Everyone's got pain. If they don't have it, then you just disqualify and move on. Be honest. Yeah. Awesome. Oh, this is really. We're gonna need to have you back here. I just feel that we're just getting started. If you could describe, the core values. I mean, I know we say, and I love the curiosity piece, I love the collaboration, but I like to dive in a little deeper. I'd even be brutal with, what do you never see? I mean, let's pretend that we had a magic wand and we could just create the perfect customer experience. What traits would salespeople, customer success, pre-sale, post-sale, what traits would they have that they currently lack these days? And if they could take a good look in the mirror, they wouldn't see it there, and they should go out and look for it. How would you design it?
I think what a lot of functions are missing right now, and a lot of people within organizations, is breadth.
Could you say that again?
Breadth, yes. So I think that people have become, a lot of organizations have kind of fostered this idea of hyper specialization, which means people are looking at the one thing that they do best without any regard for how it fits into a broader system or ecosystem, right? And we miss that connectivity. So it doesn't really matter what function you're in or what your specialization is. If you're not looking outward to understand how your component part connects to the broader system.
So you mean being self-centered is what you're saying here?
100%. That is exactly.
Okay, so yeah, all right, that's okay. Yeah, so this is a secret sauce of selling podcast. You can say whatever you want.
Okay.
We're not here. We're not here to make people feel good. We're here to help people become better. That's the only thing, right?
Absolutely.
You'll feel good. They'll feel good when they go to the bank. So stop being self-centered.
Self-centered. It's not serving anyone. In the end, it's not serving you. Businesses fail out of self-centeredness, right?
Yeah. Here's another one. Asking for help.
Asking for help. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's a generation thing. I'm a little older, so I don't know if it's a generation thing, but we're the type, we just ask for help. Pick up the phone, call someone up. They're like, "Oh, should I call? Should I not call? Should I call? Should I not call? Should I call? I'll think about it tonight. I'll sleep in on it." And then day goes by, and a week goes by, and they've not called. They've not asked for help yet. Another week goes by, and then it's just not solved. Yeah, and time kills deals because time kills memory. Time kills opportunity because time kills memory. And the more people procrastinate on that stuff, Yeah.
the big loss. Yeah, absolutely. And, I think I always am really interested in why people do these things. Why are they feeling self-centered? Why are they not asking for help? What is it that's driving that behavior? Right. That's another really important part of anything when you're designing for experience. And I think what I see the most is that people are operating from a point of fear when they're not asking for help. So I think as organizational leaders, you have to ask yourself, like, why are my people operating from fear? What are they afraid of?
Ooh.
What am I creating? What am I generating? What am I putting out into my culture? How, like, that is creating that barrier for them,
Right.
and for
Tori, can I
whatever.
have your permission to give 2 commercials right now? Because this is just I'm gonna give you plenty of time for your commercials soon. 2 quick commercials. Commercial number 1, No Guts, No Game program. Sign No Guts, No Game program. We train it. If you're afraid, if you're not assertive enough, if you're afraid, we have a solution. Commercial number 2, probably more important than commercial number 1 when it comes to just observing yourself, being self-aware. Guys, this is doing this with Novacy. Novacy, sponsors of this podcast, and they put a huge effort into this production, bringing you these amazing guests and these amazing insights. And Novacy is all about seeing yourself, seeing your buyer, seeing your customer, being aware, understanding of what is really going on, looking at in between the lines and looking at your nonverbal, and just getting a good grasp of the truth. And so those are my 2 commercials. Check out Novacy. Go onto their website, novacy.io. In the top right hand side corner, just click on the try it for free and just try it. Just try it. So just how to do it, Tori. We're back with you right now because you're just genius, and so you're just cat. Tell me about what you like to do outside of work, because I have this huge notion that we gotta love stuff outside of our business and our work in order to live a good, fulfilling life, because we don't have good days all the time. What do you like to do? What are your passions?
So I mentioned that I come from the theater, so that's still a really big part of me is theater and music. So I like to, put on a good podcast about music and kind of reminisce about different periods of time and different styles of music, and really kind of dig into some of the technical parts of it is really fun for me. And I like to read a lot of literature. I'm a nonfiction reader. I have a huge stack of business books that I absolutely like kind of pick at. But when I'm going to sit down and read, it's going to be a story. And, so for me, it's a lot about, that immersion and experience. Music is
Which
a really
book
big
would you recommend that we read to be good
a
at
book.
customer experience? In order
You
to
get
be good at what we do.
See, I think there's actually, this is where I go back to breadth. There's a lot of value. I mean, there's loads of books that are fantastic for customer experience, right? If you want um, you know, there's like Outside In, The Customer of the Future. Like there's incredible books out there that are very direct. But I think what really can create value and that empathy, curiosity, understanding of people, which is the foundation of great customer experience, is reading about people's stories. So, there's biographies. I just read The Color Purple, Memoirs of a Geisha. I love going back to literature and really immersing myself in someone's story. I think that in a less direct way creates that foundation for curiosity and understanding of other people's experience, right?
Well, we're a storytelling race. I mean, that's how information is passed. I mean, these days it's more, on social media. It's still stories. Even people
Yeah.
doing their TikToks and their Instagrams, it's all stories. And so I really relate to that. They're just so human. And I think at
Mhm.
the end of the day, it's all about that human touch. It's being human. It's being human to
Yeah.
ourselves. And
Yes.
there is a lot to learn also from everyone's story, and we use third-party stories when we communicate with our customers. We ask our customers their story, right? I mean, it's all about their
Yep.
story.
Yeah.
It's their story. It's their world. You know, the number one salesperson, the best salesperson is the customer itself. Just let them lead
Yes.
let them enjoy their own process, and you just facilitate, guide them through, give them the path.
And story is how we find connection with one another, right?
Yep.
So telling our own story, connecting and being able to tell our story, having that platform. So from a customer point of view, incredibly important, but also hearing the stories of others. That's how we connect and create relationships with one another, right? So it's really foundational. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And even guys, anyone out there is going through a rough patch. Here's the thing, on your climb to success, the best stories you will tell are about the rough times, not about the great times. You don't even remember them. It's interesting. I had to think about this the other day. I'm thinking, wow, I don't even remember the great deals I closed, but all the ones I lost, that crashed, the stuff that just went terribly wrong, I still remember them really well. And those are the fun stories I like to tell because I had those lessons learned off them. And that's where we really grow from. It's that
Mhm.
whole just being human and overcoming adversity and overcoming issues to be stronger and better. One more thing, you mentioned music.
Yeah.
Tell me, is there anything specific about the music? The reason I ask you is because I truly believe that people don't do business because of the words that are said. I believe it's more about the nonverbal, it's the tonality, it's the
Yeah.
vibration. That
Mm.
vibration actually connects people, connects concepts, makes decisions, and so on. And I do believe that music has a huge impact when it comes to that. Is there any specific kind? Because you said there were different types of music you want to like to listen to. I mean, is there anything that you'd like to share on that? Because I find that to be quite interesting.
Well, I mean, I listen to music kind of based very much on my mood and what's kind of going on in my life, right? Um, but I think there's a number of parts to music that can be like why people feel so connected to it, because I think it's a really highly emotional connection that we have with sound, and physical vibration and movement that comes from music, like music and dance being so intertwined. There's a freedom in it. And right now, like lately, I've been listening to a lot of 90s alternative rock, right? So um, I think, like I'm a mom. Sometimes I just need to like break free and kind of have like a little bit of a moment where I'm not so buttoned up at work, or I'm not like in teacher mode, and I might throw on a little Rage Against the Machine and walk through the grocery store. Like there's something in listening to certain sounds and certain lyrics. I'm a very lyric oriented person. Um, it's a way of feeling kind of validated and connecting to other people in the way that they're feeling and expressing. And I think there's just something really cool and connecting about it, and freeing, and kind of immersing yourself in somebody else's world that may really resonate with you, right? Especially in certain moments. So I think it's very powerful.
With your permission, I'd like to tie that into selling and leadership because it's all about tonality. It's all about our vocabulary. It's all about us sounding different, asking different, being more empathic. I
Yeah.
think that's really what builds great relationships. It's the stories. It's how we tell this. It's not only the stories. It's how we tell the stories. It's our tonality. It's our pausing. It's all that stuff and that vibration. We're human. We have a wonderful gift that we can actually say amazing things in an amazing way if we want to. If we don't, if we're
Mm.
more self-centered and ego takes over and we're getting all dramatic and conflict driven and all stressed and pressured and there's lots of cortisol, then that's a negative thing. It's like bad music, right? But if you are numbing that stuff out, you're bringing in your oxytocin, you're opening up to dopamine, you're opening up to endorphins, and you're taking care of yourself. That good vibration comes out, and our clients, our customers, our people, the people that work for us as leaders, they will connect to our vibration. So I really appreciate mentioning and bringing that up. There's one little thing I wanted to mention as well. You mentioned the theater. At Saturn, we have a rule number 49. Saturn rule number 49, the old rule book, is sales is a Broadway play performed by psychiatrists. So there you go.
There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Tori, how can people get in touch with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, so Tori Signorelli, and I am always open to getting emails as well, at hello@torisignorelli.com. And I'm also a mentor on ADP List. So you could go on ADP List and book a time with me, and we can have a one-on-one meeting as well.
Awesome. Tori, this has been excellent. Thank you so much. This has
Have
been a real
fun.
treat. And to the listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in. And remember that at the end of the day, it's all about giving our customers an experience to buy, an experience to stay, an experience to grow. And as always, habits over motivation, systems over goals. Whatever you do, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Good selling, and see you next time.